Hey folks, Bedtime Philosophy here. Want to go over a few thoughts. I just watched a Stefan Molyneux video. It's a couple years old, but just so pertinent as some of the current events happening. He was talking about facts of immigration and how a third of Mexico has moved to the United States of America. The president has been, said on video, and he's not the only president, saying that the United States belongs to the world. So in essence, Mexico and other countries, I think the Iranian leaders have said this too, migration. He was even on the cover of Time magazine recently, said something like, why global migration can't be stopped. Essentially saying, live with it, whitey, you're going to be genocided. So we can see this in the welfare usage. It's presented as this idea as, welfare is something used to, you're having a hard time, you've tried couch surfing, you've tried hitting up friends for help, and sort of this last resort of welfare. But in reality, when it comes to immigration, especially non-European immigration, the numbers are so clear. It's like 70% of Hispanics are on some sort of immigration. And the left, or, the mainstream narrative...
In 2/10 of a mile, turn left onto Acton Road.
Will manipulate data, or will present the data in such a way where, no, that's made up. It depends on how you look at it.
Turn left onto Acton Road.
Household benefits. And so I think, the average immigrant brings in like 8 family members. So you get the anchor baby, if you can get to the United States and have a baby, that anchors in the rest of your family. And I think the U.S. is one of the only countries, if not the only country in the world, to have that policy. So it's outlandish.
In 2/10 of a mile, turn right onto Thompson Station Road.
I'm bringing in information in from...
In 1/10 of a mile, turn right onto Thompson Station Road.
Bringing in information from Red
Turn
Elephants,
right onto
Vincent
Thompson
James.
Station Road.
And he talks about how during the 60s, Reagan granted amnesty...
Continue 1.5 miles.
...to 2 million illegal immigrants. And Reagan is often lauded as this, epitome of conservatism, or this conservative hero. And I still need to learn about the guy, and I think he probably did a lot of great things. Economically, I think he was leaning more free market, but that forever changed the history of our country when we granted illegal people the same rights as a born American. Our immigration change from our nation's history as a predominantly white European country, where almost 100% of immigration came from European countries, which have an higher IQ on average than South Americans or Africans. And
in 4/10 of a mile, turn left onto Charlottesville Road.
Beyond IQ, it seems there may be even other factors, including delay of gratification. I think it's called longer time preference.
In 2/10 of a mile, turn left onto Charlottesville Road.
The hypothesis is that evolutionarily speaking,
turn left onto Charlottesville Road, Kentucky 1960.
Had to survive winter, and winter means you have to plan for the future. You have to save your resources. You have to ration yourself during the winter. So, when your kid is asking for food, you have to say no. And learning to tell yourself no is a hard skill that
in 3/10 of a mile, turn right onto Charlottesville Road.
People can develop, but it also seems somewhat genetic.
In 2/10 of a mile, turn right onto Charlottesville Road.
I've seen it said that nations along the equator tend to be dysfunctional. There's something about when you can just pull the
Turn
fruit.
right onto Charlottesville Road, Kentucky 1960.
When you can just pull the fruit off of the tree, there's no reason to plant. If you can do that all year round, there's no winter, there's nothing to plan
Continue
for.
2.8
There's a
miles.
continuous abundance. There's no planning in terms of childbirth. You can get pregnant whenever. So there's a selective process that's removed. And so this is not to say whites are a supreme race at all. But to not acknowledge that there's difference it's not a smart move if you're trying to solve big problems. Not admitting the truth is only going to hurt you in solving real problems. In our nation, it's legal to discriminate against white people. We come from a white nation where every single founding father was white. They talk about their posterity, which has to do with sons and daughters. It has to do with ancestry. Dennis Prager, I agree with a lot of his ideas, but I think he's either dead wrong or he's completely lying that when he says, we are a nation of immigrants, or that we are a nation based on values, when he substitutes every single one of the founding fathers was either Christian or in some way Christian deist or something like that. These weren't Muslims starting this country. These weren't Buddhists. They were coming from a Christian tradition of English common law and probably the Greco-Roman philosophers. I think Jefferson had, at that time in history, either the largest or the second largest library in this hemisphere. So very well-learned, well-read men starting this country, and as white people, they had a natural ability to sort of look ahead into the future. They had a basis in history, that saying, hindsight is 20/20. Well, if you're able to look into the past, you can also see the future and foresee problems. So, again, this idea that we are a nation of immigrants, it's sort of, but not really. This was before the welfare state. These were all Europeans that were coming over. And so I think it was Italians. It was something like 30 or 40% of Italians, maybe more. They got here. They couldn't make it, under the sort of free market, sort of, Western sort of Wild West sort of country that we are, and which actually brings about prosperity. It's a tough life, but it's a long-term freedom-based system that values deservedness, that values competence over handouts, so you don't get rewarded for being lazy. Incentives matter. So yeah, without a welfare system, there was no incentive to bring over the immigrants that weren't going to assimilate. And when the Irish famine happened, there was some assimilation problems. They were Christian, they were white, but I come from Irish background, and it got to a point where the federal government said no more Irish immigrants, and justly. I think they were starting fights, they were drunkards. It's a culture shock. Even Darwin, I think, put Irish people below black people in his sort of leveling, his sort of totem pole of hierarchies of human intelligence, and so that was the right decision. They were affecting the country in a bad way, and so they had to cut it. And so now is the time where we have to do the exact same thing.
In 2/10 of a mile, turn right onto Kidville Road.
We are in a place that it's obvious, especially looking at Europe, and our own national debt, and
In 1/10 of a mile, turn right onto Kidwell Road. Turn right onto Kidwell Road, Kentucky 974.
our national IQ has dropped since the 50s, something like 6 to 8 points, maybe more.
Continue 1.8 miles.
A lot of that has to do with the word you've heard of eugenics. There's also dysgenics, when we incentivize the less intelligent to have children. Whereas in a Wild West situation is, a person that's less intelligent is not going to find the woman to make the kids with. Rather, it's more of a natural sort of hierarchy where you have to be sort of an alpha male to get the woman to procreate, and you don't have to be a eugenicist to say that that dysgenics is a bad idea, especially now, because the most educated, the most intelligent people are not having children, which is it's basically cultural suicide. Women have been pulled out of the house, which we want competent women, serving the world, using their talents. But we also want that balanced with women have food bags attached to them. Children do better when they're breastfed, when the woman is with them through, especially the younger years. So we're trading sort of this feminist promise of independence, and women's happiness isn't going up. It's dropping. I think it's below men's now. Depression has gone up. I forget the number, the usage of psychotropic pills or basically mental health drugs has gone way up in women. And that's not a good thing. We don't want to celebrate that. The feminists got exactly what they asked for when they, recently got the draft for women. I don't want my niece to be drafted. I want her to follow whatever dreams. I want her to
In
live.
4/10 of a mile, turn left toward Mountain Parkway.
To reach her highest potential. I think for the most part, women should be having children and should be homemakers.
In 2/10 of a mile, turn left toward Mountain Parkway.
That's what creates top-level societies, strong societies, when the women are bringing up strong men, strong women.
Turn left toward Mountain Parkway.
When it's values. Instead, we're substituting parents for the state. Women used to be involved in the schools. Now the public schools have become just wretched with Marxism and radical egalitarianism. A lot of times the mothers are not involved, whereas they used to be. They used to be cooking them nutritious meals. Now the state is giving them meals, that's a part of a pair bonding. That food relationship is important. Breaking bread with somebody is important. It creates a pair bond.
Continue
If your
21.8 miles on Mountain Parkway.
Or the non-person you're spending all your time with is the state, you become a child to the state. You become dependent on it. You will protect it. And so that's exactly what we're seeing with the immigration, is we're not bringing in people that are coming in and adding to the innovation of the country, that are assimilating with the values of American society. I think it was, when we were accepting Syrian refugees in Syria, they burned Christian alive in cages. But rather than bringing in Christian Syrians, still serving a need, but hand-choosing people that are going to assimilate well into American society, it was something like Obama let in like 99% of those Syrians were Muslim. Islam has no place in American society. Sharia and the Constitution are completely incompatible. So